there's actually one over my left shoulder. They're part of this system that I devised of making plastic bottles into almost like a building toy set. I put the bottles together to make components, and then to attach them, I cut up and shave down other bottles to actually make the joints. So the Puppy Powwow installation is a big group of dogs all circling around a rug made of dry cleaner bags that I made. I made in the traditional way that you would make a braided rug. And I have a special feeling about dogs as being sociable and community and truly in their feelings as sort of an animal that makes people more humane, more in touch with our kindness towards one another. So the idea of the installation is for these beautiful animals to be rendered out of plastic bottles that look maybe like balloon dogs or bubbles or even light sticks, very sort of like light, ephemeral, playful things, but they're made out of bottles that take 450 years to biodegrade. So it's that contrast and the idea that the dogs are coming together in a sociable way, maybe to think about the plastic pollution. Succulent garden. That was part of an exhibition at the City Reliquary Museum that was telling the history of trash in New York City, the sanitation workers and development of different routes and ways of collecting and getting rid of trash. So the extension of the exhibit included several artists making installations in the backyard. And I was given a raised flower bed about 12 feet long and 4 or 5 feet wide. And in it, I made a plastic bottle succulent garden. And I found such poetry in the idea of plastic bottles that hold liquid and seem to propagate everywhere, being made into succulents that are fleshy structures that hold liquid and do propagate easily. So the idea of, giving attention to like the mass of plastic bottles, but in a way that is creative, transformative, and very, very beautiful, and that people can relate to. They recognize the bottles. They recognize the plants. Back in the day, artists used 35 millimeter slides to document their work. Things have changed. We're now in the digital world. I don't even know any artists who take slides anymore. So the slides used to be kept in these slide sleeve sheets, these plastic sheets. So there came a time where I realized that I had a lot of these sheets with no use. And many artists as well had them. So I collected them, and I started figuring out a way to make them into another kind of art. I sewed them together to make panels and banners. And inside the 2-inch by 2-inch squares, I put in paint chips, detritus, junk mail, scraps, cardboard, all sorts of cast-offs, trash, and made them into artwork that related to, I guess, digital formats in a way, because each 2-inch by 2-inch square could be seen as a pixel. Anyway, I was doing this in my studio and actually started the idea of prayer flags because I had I guess a disappointment. So it was a personal way of dealing with it. And a curator became aware of it and asked me to put them, to do a permanent installation in a place called the Fortune Society, which is devoted to rehabilitating and reintroducing people into the community who have been formerly incarcerated. So this was just a very, very satisfying place to have this installation where recycled and cast off materials, waste, was being transformed into something that was giving good wishes. The idea of the prayer flags is that they, the wind is supposed to take the prayers and good wishes and goodwill towards all the surrounding people, so that it was a very uplifting way of sort of portraying transformation and using cast-off materials to do that. One thing that I do notice in collecting bottles for about 10 years for art projects, that there are changes that the companies have made towards the plastic is now thinner, the bottle caps are narrower, they use less colors, so that part of it is the feeling of like, well, there is something that, you know, big industry is doing, you know, as a person, you know, and consumer, what can I do? And I think that's also one of the things that's so important about World Cleanup Day, because it's a very clear thing. Like, this is something that people can do. You can come together and pick up the trash and maybe be more aware of throwing it out in the first place. I guess that's one of the things now also I feel that I do point out when people carelessly on the streets of New York City toss out things or a candy wrapper, that I mention it. I say, excuse me, did you drop that? And sometimes, you know, the reaction is like, oh, I don't care. It's startling, but I still feel it's important for me to do it. But I also do pick up things that I see on the ground sometimes, try to tidy up, or congratulate or thank someone else who is doing something like that.